There's a lot of excitement here at Fiserv Forum because the former president is expected to enter the arena any minute now. So we've been seeing people lining up along rope lines with their cameras out, hoping to get as close as possible to their candidate. Of course, he was here in person last night for the first public appearance since the attempted assassination. And once again, there's a lot of excitement as people are very excited to hopefully see him in person again tonight. As you mentioned, the theme has really been on crime and border security. We have seen a number of speakers here, Senate candidates, members of Congress talking about that theme. And you have to keep in mind that for this crowd, seeing a series of speakers like that is like seeing rock stars, because these delegates are really all in when it comes to politics. There's also a second theme, and that is unity. And so for more on that, let's go to my colleague, Christopher Salas. He is in the Hearst Skybox for us. Christopher?
Edie, certainly a different level of energy right now in the Fiserv Arena as the delegates and those behind me are anticipating the arrival of former President Donald Trump. The vice presidential nominee, Senator J.D. Vance, has already walked in, and he's gone to the booth over my left shoulder. Now, as we mentioned off the top of the show, the theme of tonight was Make America Safe Once Again. However, the unofficial theme really was Republican unity, because that is what we heard from Republican lawmakers all day today. And judging from the crowd behind me, former President Donald Trump has just walked into the building here at the Fiserv Forum. There he is. He just made an appearance. That's right, former President Donald Trump has just walked into the Fiserv Forum. You could hear the roars from the crowd. He still has that bandage on his right ear. Of course, that is after surviving that assassination attempt over the weekend during a campaign rally in Butler County, Pennsylvania. This crowd certainly electric at the sight of the former president, who received his third straight Republican nomination this year. And they continue to cheer him. Today, he seems to be in quite a different mood, a little more playing to the crowd rather than the emotional, more sober and somber mood he had yesterday. With that, this caps off what has been just a very exciting day here at the Republican National Convention for all the attendees that we spoke to. They say now that they have their ticket in place, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, they are very much looking forward to November and doing whatever they can to try and get them to the White House.
Ohio Senator J.D. Vance walking across the stage at the Republican National Convention just one day before he accepts the Republican vice presidential nomination. His colleagues Tuesday praising the pick.
He's going to do a great job. So, look, better days are ahead for America.
J.D. is going to bring a different perspective.
Senator Vance sitting alongside his running mate, former President Donald Trump, as he made his first public appearance since surviving an assassination attempt. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp says Republicans are now coalescing around the ticket.
And I think that's been going on even before Saturday, but I think it's certainly, more focus on that now than before.
Unity also expected to be the message from some of the most prominent speakers Tuesday night, including two of Donald Trump's biggest rivals in the primaries, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis.
There is room on this ticket for those who don't agree. There's room in this party for those who don't agree.
The major policy thrusts, less government, less regulation, lower taxes, a strong military, a strong America. We're united in that, and that's what you'll probably see, speaker after speaker.
And you are looking live right now at the Republican National Convention, specifically former President Donald Trump standing in the Friends and Family box here in the Fiserv Forum. You can see to his left, that is his vice presidential nominee, Senator J.D. Vance, the Republican ticket here going into November of 2024. If you look past the former president, that's his son, Eric. And I'm going to pause just so you can kind of take in the reaction of the crowd seeing the former president. Now, this ticket here, Trump Vance wasting no time working after the convention. They're going to have a rally in Michigan, the critical swing state, this upcoming weekend immediately following the convention. Reporting from Milwaukee, I'm Christopher Salas. Now back to you.
All right, Christopher, thank you. We want to go now to a sign of strength for the California Republican Party. Christopher just mentioned Eric Trump here tonight, and earlier today we traveled over to the hotel where the California delegation is staying, and Eric Trump was the guest of honor. He was the featured speaker at their brunch. The president's son, of course, has been very involved in the campaign, and his wife Laura is a co-chair of the Republican National Committee. Here's what he told the delegates about the time he spends in California at the Trump National Golf Club, Los Angeles.
The most beautiful views anywhere, the most perfect weather anywhere. Every time I could go out there, I go, man, if it wasn't for the taxes, I would... If it wasn't for the taxes and the lunacy, I would probably live out here. You know, it's awfully good, and you know, some of the best views looking over Catalina Island and everything. I love your state. Another great statistic, California has bought more MAGA hats than any state in the country by a factor of a lot.
And we're seeing a lot of those hats here at the Republican National Convention, as you can imagine. Now, of course, having a member of the Trump family spending time with the California delegation and making them a priority, again, is a sign of strength for the local party on a national level. Let's show you the numbers, because I think within our state, people know it can be hard for Republicans to win elections in many areas. As of February, Democrats outnumber Republicans in our state by nearly 2-1, with 45% of registered voters. Republicans have nearly 24%, and a quarter of voters are no party preference. But here's what delegates told me about a member of the Trump family making them a priority today.
We are so excited to have them here. We are the largest delegation in the nation. We also know that California is responsible for making sure President Trump has a House majority. People and partners that can make sure his common sense agenda is enacted. And so we're going to do our part.
But let's talk about what you're seeing here on a national level.
Well, I think it shows that California is important. I mean, we're the largest delegation at the convention here, right? And we have a lot of powerful Republicans and donors in the state of California. And I think they want to make sure they're communicating with us. And so the fact that we have the Trump family engaging with us.
And so, again, former President Trump is here now. You saw his arrival into Fiserv Stadium, and he really timed this just before two of his former rivals, will be taking this stage, and that's Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. And the message tonight is unity behind this ticket. So, Andrea and Ty, I'm going to be heading down to the floor right after this, and we'll be talking to the California delegation about what happens now as the party is really coalescing that support. So we'll have that and much more coming up tonight at 10 and 11. But for now, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Edie, we are looking forward to that. We'll see you back here tonight at 10 and 11.